I try to stay off social media as much as I can, the browsing and reading, because every time I'm on there, I get more nervous and I get even sometimes depressed when you look at what's going on in the world. And obviously it's good to be informed about what's going on. We see these major events, and sometimes, like especially recently, we see these terribly tragic events happening in our world. Kids, innocent people, assassinations. We see these things happening in our world, and it's very scary. And the more we look into what others are saying and what they're talking about, probably the more we're going to be stressed out and the more we're going to be anxious, because we're just seeing all this bad stuff happen. And so I've done that, unfortunately. And one of the things that I've seen a lot is these comments about what's been going on. And I've seen a lot of Christians giving their take on what's going on. They say, we're for sure in a spiritual battle, and we have to fight, because this is a battle of good and evil. And I think they're right. Although I think sometimes we don't understand the approach about the fight. We don't understand the battle, what it consists of, and where victory comes from. It is a spiritual battle. And it's not just now. It's not just because there are evil things going on now. The battle has always been happening since the very beginning. St. Paul says we are not contending against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and the powers. These things that we cannot see. That is the evil spirits. We are fighting a spiritual battle. And it is very scary, actually, because we are not capable of fighting ourselves, and we will lose. And so how do we fight? What is our approach? Well, obviously, we unite ourselves with Jesus. What's the approach of Jesus? The approach of Jesus is unlike anything that we, in all of our human capacities, all of our human intellects, it's something that we would never come up with. Even if you had all of the smartest men in the whole world, 1 million people, to try to think of something, how to deal with evil, you cannot think of it. Because there's no way that you would reach the conclusion that God reached, which is something absolutely crazy. That although He is so powerful, God, to fight this very powerful evil, He was going to make Himself utterly weak and utterly powerless and submit Himself to death on a cross. It's through the cross that we have victory. And that's something that's very hard for us to understand. We cannot understand it with our own human minds, because like I said, it goes beyond our understanding. But it's through the cross that we have victory. It's through the death of the Son of God. And obviously the culmination of the beginning of that act, which is the resurrection. But it was through His death, through His sacrifice, that He won for us salvation. That He showed us how much He loves us, and He showed us how much power He actually has. Power over death and power over sin. The cross is the way to victory. It's how we will be able to win over evil. But again, it's not what we normally think. It's not like, some people say, Jesus is king. Yes, you're right. Jesus is king. But don't use that to go and fight other people. Because how did Jesus live out His kingship? He died on the cross and He sacrificed Himself. This is something that we don't want to hear. This is something that's extremely hard for us to hear. You know why? Because this means that if we're going to live the message of the cross in our lives, we are going to have to die like Jesus. And maybe we're not going to die a physical death like Him, but it means that we're going to have to sacrifice ourselves and give of ourselves for one another. And that is the only way to have peace. St. Paul tells us that Jesus reconciles us through the blood of His cross. It's the way to have peace, is through the cross of Jesus. And again, it's very hard for the world to understand. So much so that even Christians will criticize this message because they think it's too weak. I saw the Pope being criticized when I was scrolling through social media. I saw the Pope, he posted a beautiful reminder for us. He said, let's build a culture of reconciliation. He said, we don't have enemies. We actually have brothers and sisters. Think about it. If somebody does something evil to you, that person is a child of God. And yes, they do something evil. But why do we try to have revenge? Why do we try to hurt them back when God is looking at us from heaven saying, that's my child too? Why are you trying to hurt my child? Why don't you try to reconcile with my child? You are my child, that person is my child. Why don't you reconcile? Why don't you have peace among yourselves? And there will be no peace unless we have the cross of Jesus. And so I saw a lot of people that were actually criticizing the Pope about that, saying, no, we actually have to go fight. No, we do actually have enemies. When the Pope, all he's saying is the message of the gospel: reconciliation, communion, reunification. This world is so divided. And actually the word devil literally means divider. That's what the devil wants. The devil wants us to have our own ideas, to have our own thoughts, and to be against one another. That's what the devil wants. Jesus wants us to be united, and he unites us through his cross. Think about it. If everybody was willing to sacrifice of themselves for one another, if everybody was willing to love one another to that extent, then we would have peace in this world. But let's not look out in the world now. Let's look in our own hearts and how much we need to accept the cross of Jesus in our own hearts and in our own lives and in our own families. Let's not just have the cross hanging up in our homes or our cars, or let's not just do the sign of the cross because we're used to doing it when we pass a church or when we wake up in the morning or go to sleep. Let's have the cross be actually on our hearts. Let's have the cross actually shape our lives. Let's have the cross be everything for us, because that's what it means to be a Christian. He who wishes to be my disciple must take up his cross and follow me, so that we can share in the glory of the Lord and his resurrection. There's no other way, brothers and sisters. There's no other way but the cross of Jesus, and but accepting his love and uniting ourselves to him, sacrificing ourselves to him and for one another, so that we can accept his grace and mercy in our lives and bring the peace that he so desires to be in this world and in our hearts as well.